What is the scariest, strangest, most unexplainable thing that has happened to you while home alone? The first house I moved into out of high school while going to college was a very old, very small house in a town that dated back to the Civil War. I lived there with 3 other guys since rents were high, but we made it work. The house was built on a hill and had a small driveway in front with a U-shaped driveway in back. It had a full basement and was owned by someone with multiple rental properties in the area. They told us we had full access to the upstairs, but that they used the downstairs for storage and to never go down there because it was full of their stuff. We never questioned it because the rent for this particular location for our area was low. We were still technically on campus, but our house was surrounded by other college students, so we could have parties whenever we wanted to. Everything was great until we started having unwanted visitors. At first, things were pretty easy to ignore or completely write off. A roommate home by themselves would walk into a room and the lights would be on when they were home alone and hadn't flipped any switches. Someone else would hear a faucet turn on and off in a room with no one in it. We tried to do what research we could at the time and found that water pressure can cause faucets to do some crazy things on their own, and that power surges can do similar things with flickering lights. Unfortunately, things kept getting stranger. At one point, one roommate, who was home alone, got out of the shower, looked into the mirror to start shaving, and noticed that someone else stepped out of the shower behind him and left the room. He searched the house but couldn't find anyone else home at the time. Later on, a different roommate had several items go missing out of his room, including his keys and a pocket knife. He later found them in our microwave. Again, no one else was home at the time. Me, personally, I got home on a day when nobody else was at the house for the next couple of hours in between classes. There was a folding chair on the front porch next to the door, and I had an armload of books. I set the books down in the chair, unlocked, and pushed open the front door, turned and picked up my books, and when I went to walk into the house, the door slammed in my face. I thought the wind had caught the door and went to open it, but discovered that the door had locked itself again, both handle and deadbolt. Last of all, 3 of us were sitting together on a couch watching TV when we heard a loud, heavy thud, as though something had been dragged off of a bed in a back bedroom. All 3 of us later confirmed that we could distinctly hear both footsteps walking through the house, as well as the sound of something heavy being dragged behind. Last of all, the back door opened and slammed shut, even though we were all in the living room, and there was supposed to be no one else in the house. A week later, we started to smell gas in the house. We called the authorities in the middle of the night, and they searched the house with us waiting on the front lawn. Finally, they told us that they couldn't find a gas leak and asked us to open the basement. We had never been in there at our landowner's request, but since the fire department was asking, we opened the garage door. Right in front of us was a Honda Shadow motorcycle with a large pool of gasoline underneath it, where the gas tank had apparently leaked underneath it and the rest of the house. The firefighters saw this and decided to leave, while we were left to look around the rest of the basement. Most of what we found was shelves and shelves of canned vegetables, but in the very middle of the floor, under everyone's bedrooms, was a mortuary table and a second device. I'm still not sure what the second device was. It was cylindrical, with a small viewport in the front door. It seemed to have some places on the back for hoses or pipes to connect to it, although nothing was attached when we found it. It was about the right size for a couple of 2 liters of soda to fit inside. Soon after, we found out that our landowner worked night shifts at a local hospital. Whatever it might have been, we decided that enough was enough, and we all decided to move out as soon as our leases were up. I was the last one there, and I promise that the last 7 days I spent there alone are the longest days I've spent anywhere since. I am a self-described cynic who doesn't believe in the supernatural, but I can also admit when I have absolutely no explanation for a set of events. I'm sure some Reddit scientists will be able to explain everything that happened to me now that many years have passed, but I don't need their explanations anymore. I just accept that being in old houses alone is not a good idea, and do my best to avoid them altogether. I was in my college apartment and my roommate had just moved out. Her room was directly across from mine with the living room between us. I had cleaned out her room and then closed the door. I left my bedroom door open when I went to take a shower one night. My bathroom was connected to my bedroom. I also happened to leave the bathroom door open. While I was in the shower, I thought I heard a woman talking. I had never been able to hear my neighbors talking before, but figured they just happened to be talking in their bathroom, which shared a wall or something. When I got out of the shower, I was surprised to see a black void when there should have been the bright white closed door of my old roommate's door reflecting in the moonlight. I figured I just forgot to close the door and went and closed it. The next night, I once again went to take a shower and left my room and the bathroom door open. But this time, I checked to make sure the other door was latched and the front door was double locked. When I came back out, I once again saw the void with the door wide open. I slammed my door closed and locked that shit so fast. I convinced myself there was a logical explanation. So the next night, I once again checked all of the doors and then closed my bedroom door. This time, I came out of the shower and my bedroom door was open along with the other door. I showered and slept with my bedroom door locked from that point on. I guess this took place over several nights home alone, and I may not have even been alone. Still the creepiest thing that ever happened, though. Not my story, but a friend from college. A house her family lived in for a while when she was a kid had an attic that ran the length of the house, and the access was through a door in the back of her brother's closet at the far end. Their parents forbid them from messing around up there because it was filled with boxes from previous tenants. Landlord said, "I don't care if you look through them, but I don't know what's in there, so do so at your own risk." And because if someone got hurt by something falling on them or something, it might go unheard, unnoticed until too late. To make things weirder, at the very back end of the attic, so right above her bedroom, was a little locked room. Well, friend starts getting woken up at night by the sound of someone moving around quietly, which always turns into rapid, quiet creaking almost right above her. She figures it's her brother. Because he'd have to cross over their parents' room as well, she figured he'd get caught eventually and just did her best to ignore the sound or think about what a teenage boy might be doing to cause it. One day during the summer, she slept in on a weekend. When she woke up, she looked outside and saw her parents working on the big produce garden they'd put in. She went and got some breakfast, then went back up to her room to play with her Game Boy. For the first time after months of getting woken up, she heard the noises during the day. Curious to catch him in the act, she crept to her brother's room. The closet door was open. The attic access was open. She quietly went up the steep and narrow stairs until she could just peek in, and saw first that a path had been cleared, and then that the mattress her dad had wedged in front of the little room had been slid aside. Most surprising, however, was that the locked door at the back was ajar. Her brother stuck his head out, saw her right away, and smiled, calling her over. "You gotta come see this," and then pulled back inside of the dark room. She said that the only other time she had ever felt so instantly, totally, instinctually afraid was her first time hearing a cougar scream at night in the woods. She instantly noped and flew all the way downstairs and flew the yard to tattle on her brother, only to see him hauling stuff around and helping their parents, as he'd been all morning and afternoon apparently. Shocked and afraid of not being believed, even they asked why she looked so afraid. She simply answered, "I think there's someone in the attic." When pressed, she said she heard footsteps and saw that the door was open when she went to look. Dad swore and went and got his gun from his truck and instructed them to wait 15 minutes. If he didn't come back out, they were to all get in the truck and drive to the neighbor's place a couple miles down and call the police. No cell phones back then. He went in, and after a very anxious wait, came back out pissed as hell, demanding the kids fess up who had been messing around up there. Both denied it, and the family went to look as a unit, with friend reluctantly bringing up the rear. Someone had indeed pushed all the boxes and the mattress out of the way. The door was indeed unlocked and open. All that was inside No light, no window, was an old rocking chair, and everything covered in decades of dust, with no sign that anyone but them had been in the room at all. No streaks, no footprints, just some ancient mouse shit and an old chair. Brother pointed to this as proof he couldn't have been the one, because how would he leave no signs? In the absence of other explanations, Dad didn't buy it. Brother got grounded for the next couple weeks for breaking the rules and sneaking around, and friend refused to go back to the attic the rest of the time they lived there, sleeping on the couch in the downstairs living room when she could get away with it, because the sound of steps and the rocking would still regularly wake her up. She told this story at a couple gatherings as an answer to similar scariest thing to happen to you prompts, but details left out included some eerie notes. Well into adulthood, years and years after they moved away, she still has recurring nightmares about that attic. It's always the same dream, but it goes one of two ways. In the dream, it's like she's on a rail, and no matter how she tries to stop, go backwards, etc., she just smoothly glides along. Up the stairs, down the hall, into her brother's room, up the attic steps, unable to close her eyes or turn away. The way it usually goes is that she is frozen at the point right where she can see into the attic, and the door to the little room is open. Her brother's smiling face emerges, but she knows in her heart, it's not him. The not brother grins and beckons, and the attic gets shorter and shorter, her unable to turn or run away until she is just within arm's reach. And just as he lunges for her, she wakes up drenched in a cold sweat and crying. The other way it goes, it's the same all the way until the attic, but then when her brother's face peeks out, she knows it is him. In this version, though, he's covered in thick dust, his hair, his skin, etc., except that tears have streaked his face. He calls out to her, but makes no noise. She can't understand what he's trying to say, except for two words, "Help me." Then something pulls him back inside, and she is frozen, knowing in her gut that something terrible is happening to him, but she can't save him. This goes on until she wakes up racked with guilt and fear. I met her brother at a BBQ and asked him about the house and the little room. Apparently, he never heard her side of the story. I didn't tell him details. He swore he never went up there for fear of spiders and was pissed he was grounded but innocent because it meant missing out on some summer stuff he and friends had planned. He always assumed it was a prank by his sister where she panicked and lied when their dad reacted all serious and got his gun. I asked him if he remembered anything weird about the house, and he said the only thing he thought was weird was that he'd wake up knowing he dreamt, but not remember the dreams at all. Said it was only weird because he doesn't normally have a sense of dreaming at all, before or after that house. But while they were there, the feeling happened all the time. Otherwise had only good, neutral memories from there. I never got the impression she was lying. Always spooked me hearing the story, because assuming all details are correct, there's too many big questions. What was she hearing at night? Why was the door open to the attic? Who moved all the boxes? How did the little room unlock when none of them had the key? If someone had gone in, or come out, how were there no marks in the dust? And most importantly, if that wasn't her brother, WTF did she see up there? The first time I saw her, I was 6. We were playing the opposite of hide and seek. One person hides while everyone else looks. And once you find the person, you hide with them till there's only one person looking. It was my turn to hide and chose to hide under the stairs where my dad kept all the camping gear, 'cause there were lots of things to hide under, behind, ect. There was only one person left. With all of us cramped in the room under the stairs. The last person left was sitting on the stairs above us, my brother, and we could hear him yelling in his defeat to get us to surrender. In my hiding spot, I could see the door that led out, and it was cracked a little bit. A girl about my age poked her head in the room and waved at me. I had said out loud, "What's your name?" With no reply, she vanished, which prompted me to follow after her, yelling at her to come back, ultimately giving up our hiding spot. Everyone under the stairs, brothers and cousins, starting yelling at me asking what the hell I was doing and who I was talking to. Nobody else had seen her, and we couldn't find her upon searching. The next time I saw her, I had gone over to the neighbor's house to play with the boy my age because they had just gotten a new puppy. The neighbor boy had 8 siblings, LOL Mormons, all boys, and the oldest son had come home to visit. He came into the basement where we were playing. Shortly after, I heard my name being called from upstairs by a girl. I had figured it was one of the neighbor girls, as it was common to have friends show up uninvited in my neighborhood. Everyone had an open door policy. The same girl I had seen was standing at the top of the stairs. She told me to call over to my house and have my older brother come walk me home right now. We lived right next door. I didn't at all feel scared and just did what she told me right then and there. My older brother was furious and couldn't understand why I couldn't just do the 15-second walk home by myself. I have multiple instances seeing and hearing from her when in the presence of that older neighbor boy, always telling me it was time to go home or not leave my brother's side or be alone with him ever. I'm not sure why I had never questioned or feared her. I was one stubborn child and hated when told what to do. At the age of 8, I was sleeping when I had gotten shaken awake. It was her. She told me I needed to be really quiet and go wake my dad up because someone was outside my window. I did what I was told and went to wake my dad. He got his gun out of the safe by his bed and instructed me to stay with my mom. A few seconds later, he started screaming at my mom to call 911. Sure enough, there was someone outside my window. When the officers were questioning me, I mentioned the little girl, which freaked my parents out. I told them about the girl for the first time, as well as all the times I've seen her. They took me in to see the bishop, as I was about to get baptized, and due to meet with him anyway, and instructed to tell him all about her and when I've seen her. Which started me on all types of church therapy bullshit and vows of secrecy for getting a gift from God and blah blah blah. I saw her on the way home from my boyfriend's house one night in high school. I was driving at around midnight through a back road that had trees on all sides. I was coming up to an intersection where I had no stop signs, but the perpendicular road did. She walked out from the tree line in front of me, causing me to slow to a stop just before the intersection. As soon as I stop, a car blows through the stop signs just in front of me, scaring the fuck out of me. I turned back to where she was, and she just smiled and walked back into the tree line. Had I not stopped, I would have been hit on my side of the car by the person who blew through the stop signs. I've seen her in many other occasions. Call it hallucinations, call it divine intervention, call it whatever you want. But I'm grateful for her. I've never seen her and been scared. More at peace, kind of like seeing an old friend. Edit. Yikes, I didn't know this would be so offensive and triggering to so many people. I just wanted to share my positive experience with the unexplained when so many other posts were riddled with the spookies. So before you hop into my DMs to tell me I'm just schizophrenic, I have had plenty of assistance in the mental health department, and I am not schizophrenic, but I do appreciate your concern. At the end of the day, everybody's realities are different. Who are we to say that what someone experiences is false, just because you have never experienced it? To those asking how I personally feel about it, the supernatural, to be honest, I really don't know and have been on a journey to find that out since leaving my religion. As mentioned below, I have had many encounters with mental health professionals, and it has been brought up that it's a possibility that my unconscious mind is forcing my conscious mind to acknowledge and respond to potential danger. I don't at all want to discount my own personal experiences or reality, or the experiences of others for that matter, and I'm grateful beyond words for the protection and warning I've got from her, whether it be all in my head or not. But I also ask myself often, why me? Why do I get help and protection when so many need it more? And that is my inner struggle at the moment, not wanting to disregard or be ungrateful for my many experiences with her. But I also work in pediatric behavioral health and see a lot of horrible and devastating things that happen to the innocent by the hands of another. It's often hard to think of her as being a guardian angel or a divine intervention when there are so many people who needed protection and didn't get it. A few years ago, I was home alone for the weekend. My parents had gone out of town, and my younger brother was at a friend's house. It was a cold, rainy night, and I was curled up on the couch watching a horror movie. Bad idea, in hindsight. Around midnight, I heard what sounded like soft knocking. It wasn't at the front door, though. It was coming from somewhere inside the house. At first, I thought it was just the wind rattling something, but then I heard it again. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. I muted the TV and sat there listening. Silence. I tried to shake it off and went back to watching my movie. Maybe 5 minutes later, my phone vibrated. A text from an unknown number. "Why didn't you answer?" I felt my stomach drop. I texted back, "Who is this?" but got no response. Then came the knocking again, closer this time. It sounded like it was coming from the hallway. My heart was pounding. I slowly stood up and grabbed the nearest thing I could use as a weapon, a fireplace poker. I walked toward the hallway, every hair on my body standing on end. As I stepped into the hall, I felt it, this overwhelming sense of someone watching me. But there was no one there. I checked every room, every closet. Nothing. All the windows were locked, the doors were bolted. I was completely alone. I sat back down on the couch trying to calm myself when my phone vibrated again. Another text. "Look outside." I didn't want to. Every part of me screamed, "Don't do it," but my shaking hands reached for the curtain anyway. Outside, on the porch, stood a figure. No umbrella, no coat, just standing there in the rain. Their face was obscured by the dark, but I could tell they were staring right at me. I lost it. I ran to my room, locked the door, and called 911. When the police arrived 10 minutes later, the porch was empty. The only thing they found? Wet footprints leading from the porch to my bedroom window. I never found out who it was or how they had my number. But I know one thing. They were inside the house before they ever knocked.